Down the Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to another episode of 5 on the Floor. This is a post-game edition. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. With me, tonight's floor plan, we dissect the heartbreaking loss to the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA Cup, which is supposed to be a bigger deal for regular season games. They lose 106-103. With me to dissect that game is Eternal. Follow him at Eternal Bast on many different platforms. You know him from Playback, though. And Digital Adel, who's been a regular on the post-game shows, is here as well. We're going to get into all the action, but before we do, first, I'm going to shout out Off the Floor. That is where every Heat fan needs to migrate because it's the most Heat anywhere. You're going to get updates. You're going to get a place to chat, chop it up with the other Heat fans. You can talk about music. All kinds of different topics are there. We have a bunch of channels, $2.99 on your desktop, $3.99 on your Apple device. Off the Floor. That is the most Heat anywhere. So, this was a weird game. This was a wild game. It started out depressing. I have to be honest. I started getting angry at the team, the way that they started this game, especially when you heard Giannis was out because Dame was just on fire. And it was weird the way that they gutted back into it. It was a tale of two halves in that the energy and enthusiasm was just different in the second half versus the first half, and I don't like that on the home floor. So this game left with weird vibes because towards the end there were really fun plays, but ultimately you come up short against a team that you're right in the thick of the standings with. It's a tough one. Adele, I'll come to you first. Just your initial thoughts on the game. Just ended, 3-point loss. There was a late shot attempt. We'll get into the specifics later, but just your thoughts on the game in totality.
Yeah. So my thoughts on the game, Greg, is just it was a roller coaster of emotions throughout the game. And as you said, it's a tale of two halves. The first half, you couldn't play much worse than what the Miami Heat played in that first half. They shot really poor percentages from the field, from 3-point line. They were missing free throws. They were turning the ball over. The defense wasn't particularly engaged or forceful, if you will. And Dame Lillard absolutely just went berserk in the first quarter. So it was very difficult for the Heat fan to sit through that first half. But the second half did bring a lot of highs where you're like, look at the growth from Pelle Larsson. Look at some good minutes from Kelly Ware. There were good things that occurred in that second half that the Heat fan could really get behind, but then ultimately it just didn't turn out in the Heat's favor. And it was a game I thought they needed for sure without Giannis.
Yeah, at home, you got to get these ones when you're close in the standings. It's one that we're going to look back on, and it'll direct whether you have home court or not, or whether you end up in the play-in or not. These are these games that we look back on in a schedule that you could have actually crept back into and the league got up to 22. Eternal, your initial thoughts before we get to the player of the game.
I think my initial thoughts are that they played terribly in the first half, right? From the part of the game that I was able to catch, because I did get in early mid of the second quarter. They played terrible. Milwaukee was hot from 3-point. I didn't think that they would carry over into the second half, which it didn't. Miami did start to play some really, really aggressive defense. But you got some slowdown from Milwaukee, and then in the fourth quarter, Terry had a hot fourth quarter, which brought them closer, and also some other things as well. But my initial thought is, even though they didn't have Giannis, they still had Dame, and they still had the rest of their squad, minus why am I missing? Oh,
Chris Middleton?
Chris Middleton.
Because he's been gone that long.
He really has.
But all jokes aside, but I Miami went out swinging, which is what we wanted them to do. Jesus Christ, guys, for anybody in the organization, because I know y'all listen, I have no idea what's going on with the free throws, but they are costing you games. They have literally cost you 3 to 4 games this season, if not more. That is an issue. You're a professional basketball team. What are we doing?
That's just to reference that, they lost by 3. They missed 7 free throws. They were 76.7%. Milwaukee, in contrast, was 82% from the line. So the Heat go 23-30. It's an interesting point because I think the details matter for this group. Specifically, they don't have overwhelming talent, and games at home like this, they got to win. There was a player that got in the way early, and I think he reminded a lot of Heat fans of what could have been. Let's get to it now. The Insurance by Lynette player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
Pain. The pain. Damian Lillard was really good. Really good. 37 minutes, 37 points, 10 of 17. 8 of 13 from 3. 9 of 9 from the free throw line. He's an elder statesman guard that gets to the line. Got to respect it. 12 assists, 3 rebounds, back-breaking 3. After back-breaking 3, they kind of built up this lead. So he's the player of the game. It makes Heat fans think to themselves, and Brady Hawk shared in our Discord off the floor that there was earlier in the night Dame warming up on one half of the court and the Dame package, which included Tyler and others, warming up on the other side. Adele. Let's kind of pivot away from Milwaukee, because who the hell wants to talk about the Bucks? Dame was the best player on the floor tonight. Who from Miami jumped out at you tonight?
So I'll give you an underrated guy that his stats really don't pop off the page. But if you watch the game and you didn't box score watch, Pelle Larsson to me just fits. He is just a connector, a glue guy, does a lot of the dirty work. And Pelle Larsson made timely cuts, his movement without the ball, his gritty defense, his ability to hit the glass. I mean, he only shot 33% from the field. He was like 20% from 3, but he did a lot of the dirty work that got Miami back into the game in the second half. Terry Rozier, I verbally called myself out saying that he should have been subbed out at the last 3 minutes of the game. He absolutely went berserk, carried the Heat down the stretch, and hashtag Eternal was right.
Yeah, and I want Eternal to get in on Terry specifically, but I'm glad you mentioned Pelle. Hopefully I said that correctly this time. Pelle Larsson, not Pele Larsson. Thank you to the listener who corrected me on that via Twitter. He was the first guy off the bench, if I recall, ahead of Jaime. Yes. That's a big deal to me that he is getting that kind of exposure this early, that kind of trust. It bodes well for him. Terry came up big. He came off the bench and figured it out to a degree. And I think this is the roller coaster ride that is Terry Rozier. Eternal, you were an advocate of keeping him in this ball game late when Adele and others wanted other guys to maybe sub in form. Your thoughts on Terry Rozier's performance in his first game back from injury? Now they're kind of whole, so that's the other part of this that hurts. Terry's back. You wanted to get a win. You came up a little short, but it wasn't for Terry's lack of trying nor productivity. Your thoughts on Rozier?
I thought Terry responded well in the second half. I don't know how he did in totality in the first half, so I won't comment on that. But I thought he did. He had a really good bounce back in the second half, especially the fourth quarter specifically, where he had a string of plays, 3 straight actually of scoring, 2 from the outside, 1 going in the paint off a very nice move, and he also had not like Rajon Rondo defense, right? It wasn't that, but he had some pretty good to average defense in the fourth quarter on Dame and some others where he wasn't a liability. And to me, I thought, that was a really good half to a fourth quarter for Terry. Obviously, when it comes down to, the last shot, it's just he chopped his feet up, man. He chopped his feet, and I'm sure a lot of you guys that are basketball aficionados, like, you have to prepare yourself for the shot before you even get the ball. And so if you go back and watch that play, he doesn't chop his feet and he's not balanced. So he takes the dribble so he can get balanced. And he even rushed that. So it just sucks because he did a lot to have them back in the game. He did his part to have them in position to win. I still think the biggest thing that killed them was their free throws, because they wouldn't have been in a position where you have to take a kill shot. Like, they could have taken a 2, and if we didn't get the 2, we go into overtime because we're tied, or whatever. But I do shout out to Terry for responding well, especially coming off the bench, because he did start.
Yeah, and I think that's something to watch going forward. If he continues to come off the bench, I think Heat fans expected that with the winning streak that was in place, where it was Tyler and Duncan in the backcourt. This now allows Spoelstra, although it is the second night of a back-to-back, as they head up to Charlotte for another game right before Thanksgiving. I don't know that he changes the starting lineup that quickly. I think that may be perceived as a panic move. So I maybe would expect this same lineup. Maybe Terry sneaks into the starting lineup because he's returning to Charlotte, but that's a little narrative-driven. Eternal kind of alluded to some of what went on at the very end of this game, because it did come down to the final possessions. Let's dive into that with the Mobile C-Arm and Staffing X-ray of the play of the day.
And now it's time for the X-ray of the play of the day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-ray of the play of the day.
So the Heat needed a big play down the stretch. And it's funny, for 2 nights in a row, they go to the same play, Adel. It's basically that play with, I think Duncan is inbounding, Jimmy's down on the baseline. There was a short moment, and us on playback, Eternal was watching. He caught it as well, where Jimmy could have gotten the rock, and you may have had an advantage down there, but ultimately it went to Tyler instead. Tyler got a clean look. It just didn't go in. And then the very last play of the game, which Eternal alluded to earlier, Terry took a dribble when he shouldn't have. So I'll ask you, I know you had a thought on on Terry that you wanted to get to, so we'll slide that in here as well. But in that very last play of the game, how the hell does Terry Rozier take that dribble? Like, when you're talking about knowing how much time you have left on the clock, what's your perception of how he approached that? And like, it just, for me, it seems like a lack of awareness. I don't want to be, too down on the possession, but you feel like you got to get it up in time. They didn't even get the shot off. What other options were there? because that final play, you still have enough time on the clock to get up a good shot and tie the ball game, and they didn't even get an attempt up. Your thoughts?
So you connected that masterfully to what my actual point was without even knowing what my point was, is that Terry Rozier, when he gets in trouble, is when he hesitates and he's unsure of what he's going to do. I'm going to make my dribble move. Should I attack? Should I float? Should I go, stop, go? And I think what made him so effective down the stretch, he was super decisive. If he was turning the corner, he put his foot in the ground, got all the way to the basket to finish over the top of people. If he was going to shoot the three, he was going to get right into his motion. And that's what I think made him so effective. Now, in these clutch moments, in these moments where everything's on the line, people are creatures of habit. And Terry, by nature, isn't decisive. He's a very indecisive player, and that's part of what the issue has been with Miami. So on that final play, you can kind of see it. If you go back and watch it, you can kind of see where he's like, I'm going to go into the motion, but I'm not comfortable. Let me take this dribble to get into my rhythm dribble, and then he shoots it. Because he just isn't a creature of, I can catch and shoot naturally. It's not a natural process for him. And I just think it's out of his normal thing. So when all the chips are down, he reverts to what's comfortable, and that's taking that rhythm dribble. So that's my opinion on what happened.
No, and that's huge, because that was the difference between the shot being up in time to actually count. If it ever does go in, it didn't come in. It didn't come close to the rim, unfortunately. Eternal, let's rewind back one more play, though. What were your thoughts on the decision to get it to Tyler? It was a clean look. He had his legs underneath him. I mean, I think most people would say, okay, we'll take that look. But I sensed that you thought that there could have been another option on that play. So what are your thoughts on kind of how they drew up that final play that could have involved Jimmy Butler late in that game against Milwaukee?
It's a very split second, right? Jimmy comes off as the same exact play that they won, not won, but that Jimmy was able to get the dunk, which should have been an and one, but it was the same exact play. He comes off. He has a window, a hand-sized window for the pass. Whether Duncan throws it up over the shoulder or he just throws it out in front of him, he still had to play at it. And I think you trust Jimmy there just because of how great Jimmy's hands are. The man could have went to the Hall of Fame as a tight end with all the crazy passes that he catch, that people be putting that man in the hospital. But, I guess Duncan just entrusted because the way the defender was trailing. Just trust your guy to go up and get it. But they went to Tyler. There were 4.6 seconds left on the clock when Tyler shot it. Somebody has a screenshot on Twitter. It was 4.6 seconds. Now, obviously, when you're looking at the screenshot is a still image. It's not moving and things like that. So Tyler's probably thinking, if I try to make the pass to Duncan, who just came inbound, maybe I think it's AJ Green or Pat Connaughton, maybe he makes a play at the ball, then you lose some seconds. You know what I'm saying? So it's a quick play. I'm not really mad at Tyler. The ball went in, it just popped out. So it's not like it was a Terry thing where it hits the side of the backboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they had a chance with Jimmy, and I would have preferred they went with it.
Yeah, I saw what you saw as well. I also didn't hate the Tyler look. I think that's this team this year. Tyler Hero getting an open shot to tie a game or win a game is about as good a look as you can ask for. If you play the percentages and play even the eye test, Tyler's kind of led some of the offensive stuff that's looked best with this group. Let's get to the other side of the ball. We're going to do the defending the house segment. Adel noticed something that the Heat did. It worked to get them back in the game. I wish they maybe would have done it from the tip. We'll tell you what that is in a moment. Let's get to our next segment.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
So anybody that defends Dame Lillard usually picks him up as close to half court as possible. And I don't know that they did that right from jump, and Dame got in a rhythm. But in the second half, they did do something that helped a ton. Adele, dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the second half, they extended their defense well above the 3-point line, and where Milwaukee was starting their offense from, not just on Dame, but any player, they were really having a hard time running any actions because of how intense the ball pressure was. Pella Larson, Jaime Hawkins Jr., Jimmy, Bam, all of them were getting into the Bucks players' jerseys and pushing them really far out. And then with Dame specifically, they were trapping those pick and rolls. They weren't letting Dame come off of staggered screens and just raise up like they were in the first half. They were pushing up, getting that ball in the rotation. But when they got back in the game, it was really that second unit pushing their offense all the way out to half court. And really, the Bucks weren't able even to get the ball into the lane, like even into the under the 3-point line. They just had the umbrella of the court just walled off. And that was really the game changer for the Miami Heat. Completely disrupted the Milwaukee Bucks' rhythm and ability to run offense in the second half.
Ultimately did still come up short. 106-103 was the final. Milwaukee gets the win. They are now, I know they have a better record than Miami in this group play. Some other notable things just to mention, Nico was a DMP coach's decision. J. Rich, DMP coach's decision. Those are things to watch. I think up in Charlotte, second night of a back-to-back, we'll see if we get the same stringent rotation or if Spoelstra gives good nights off or how that works. Eternal, I'm coming to you in advance of Thanksgiving. We're going to close the show. Give us something at 7-8 to be grateful for as Miami Heat fans as we head into the holiday.
I will say this, just like I said it earlier, in our pod. If they hit their free throws, you can literally tack on you can flip it. It's 4 to 5 games that they probably win. Right? Like the Sacramento game, the Phoenix game, this game, I'm already at 3. So like there are games they would have won had they hit their free throws. That does not absolve them of the other bad play. Just Miami has been in it, right? I think Miami only had like 1 blowout loss this early season. So every game they've been in it. And I think a lot of where my frustration, or not necessarily frustration, kind of just tired, like, because we've been doing this year round, right? Is that with the fans, that I get it. With your personal lives and everything else added on, with you just coming to your sport, trying to get you're just trying to get off, man. Like you just want a break from reality. And you have not been getting what you wanted the past few seasons. It has not resulted in a championship. I get it. You want change. Everybody wants change. But when you look at this team, they have been in it. You can't ask for anything better than that. And really, to be honest with you, they've been in it in spite of all of the foolishness and all of the madness of what's been going on. Terry being kind of terrible, been terrible to start the season. Jimmy kind of being out, not being himself. Oh, Jimmy's now back to himself. This has been one of the worst starts of Bam's careers right now. He's had some strong games. Tyler looks great. You have not. Jaime has been hurt with the groin injury. Nico has regressed a little bit. Like you haven't seen all of the things that you were hoping to see, but they've been there. To me, that is a silver lining because they correct some things. It's not the trades that you want, but if they correct some things, things look a little different.
Yeah, the East is wide open, and that's something that fans may get upset about. But the fact that you can be 7-9 and out of the play-in, like I don't know that it'll stay that way all year. You may need to get a few games above 500 to maintain that top 4, top 5 status. But the Heat can do that. I mean, Eternal mentioned the free throws. There's other things that you can point to, things that go either way that could completely change the complexion of a game here or there. And we saw last year, like they were in the play-in, but they were only a handful of games out of being a 3 seed. And there was a moment when they could have pushed to get there. So this is going to be another one of those years. And I think something to be grateful for beyond just the fact that, you know, it's been close and they're competitive is that they still got Eric Spoelstra. And I think that that's going to be, if they're going to figure this out, at least they got a guy at the helm that you can trust to make good decisions. I think that he's trying different combinations. And I think Terry coming off the bench may be the next thing that sticks. We'll see. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Eternal and Adel for your time. We wish everyone at the network, even though we're going to pod again tomorrow night, but who knows who will be the cast of characters you'll see. We wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe. And unfortunately, we're potting after a loss, but hopefully next time it'll be after a win. Peace out.